Okay, you are asking a question about good and bad and right and wrong in relationship to morality and sila. And uh, actually, having a lot of rules about what it should be, etc., like that, actually causes a lot of harm. In other words, you go around labeling things as right and wrong and good and bad. All right. Now, the sila is actually, let us say, the precepts, which is often referred to as sila, was something that was developed long after the Buddha. And having
Okay.
ceremonies where people take the five precepts happened many, many centuries after the Buddha. That what the Buddha taught was is that when the mind is free from the hindrances, when the mind doesn't want anything, when the mind is noble and unified and you don't want anything, then you're unlikely to cause harm. You're unlikely to cause people suffering by killing, stealing, gossiping, taking advantage of, etc., like that. He did not codify that stuff. Rather, he taught that this is the quality of the noble mind. It was ordinary people who took it out of context and made it into precepts and more rules, which he actually was against. I do not think that the Buddha would approve of people having ceremonies where they take the precepts. And not only that, but the precepts are almost always given with the triple gem. Buddham Saranam Gacchami, Dhammam Saranam Gacchami, Sangam Saranam Gacchami, Dutiyampi, Buddham Saranam Gacchami. You probably, if you've been there at all, you probably heard that.
I've heard
And
it.
then the
I think other
taking of
people say it.
precepts is done next in that ceremony, and that is Panatipata Vairamani Sikabadam Samatiyami Atinadana Vairamani Sikabadam Samatiyami. Now, in this regard, what I'm talking about is that taking the triple gem, taking it as a ceremony or as a vow, the Buddha would not be quite so against that as he would point out that that's what an ordinary mind does. And so when the monks give these precepts and the triple gem, they assume that the people that they're doing this with are ordinary people who do not have the wisdom to actually take refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, and so they make it into a ceremony instead. They also assume that these are ordinary people who do not have the wisdom and the noble mind, which would then keep them from harming others. So basically, the Pali word of abhimsa means to do no harm, which goes exactly right back to what the Buddha was talking about and teaching in the sense of dukkha, dukkha, nirodha. Dukkha, in this regard, means abhimsa means to refrain from causing trouble to other people. This is, in fact, part of the reason why I was recommending don't ask questions. Don't bother or trouble the monks with questions. Does that make sense now? Okay,
Yeah, that
because
makes sense.
um, the only rule that you really ever need is that rule of do no harm. Do what you will, but create no harm.
Got it. Um, would you
Now,
say that sometimes?
here's a hard part, and that is that the harm, like beauty, is in the eye of the beholder. In that regard, you may have to do a little bit of mind reading.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to ask.
And the right way to do that is to read one's own mind and don't do the things that cause you harm, cause you to see harm, because that's more than likely going to be the same thing with others. Like Jesus' golden rule, for instance, is based upon a rule. Do unto others the way that you want to be treated. But that's not wisdom, that's a rule. Wisdom would be treat other people the way they want to be treated, and that takes a little bit of mind reading. So first step would be treat other people the way you want to be treated, but then real wisdom would be treat people the way they want to be treated.
And how would you say to read others' minds? To just be attentive?
Yes. Look closely, but also look closely within your own mind. Begin to see that any time that you're thinking about other people, every time that you're thinking about the past and the future, see, that's basically what we're talking about here. And the right advice for me to give you would be forget about the what. You're not at the what right now. Be here now. Okay? So that's basically the whole point then is that we do talk about certain behavior, but the behavior that I'm talking about is the quality of be here now when you're at the what.
Okay. Yeah, that clears up a lot. Thank you. Sorry, did you have something to say?
No. Okay. Does that cover it for you?
I think so. And then just to make sure I'm getting it right, so the mind that's satisfied in a noble mind will naturally not causing harm towards others because it will just be satisfied, and so you'll be following the sila that is prescribed.
Yes,
or it's like the outcome
we're
of
not
correct
interested
practice.
in following sila. We're interested in not causing harm to ourselves or to others. That's the teaching of the Buddha. Like I said, sila and the precepts came centuries later. It came as a
the Buddha never
formality.
taught.
Pardon?
The Buddha never talked about the precepts, or
Yeah, the precepts did not exist in the time of the Buddha. What existed was the teaching that when the mind is noble, one refrains from being harmful.
Okay.
All right. And so they took that and turned it into a rule of thou shalt not cause harm, which is in fact not actually the way that the Buddha would teach. And not only that, but it assumes that the person is going to be ordinary and they need a set of rules.
I guess that also, I had another question around ordinary versus noble. Why do people, or why do monks or anyone teach the ordinary path, or why doesn't everyone just teach the noble path?
Because 99% of the people are ordinary. The problem is that if all there is teaching is the ordinary path, then those who are ready to hear the noble Dhamma won't hear it. Because the monks are teaching ordinary people. This is the reason that Bhikkhu Buddhadasa and Achan Po wanted me to teach the supramundane, the noble Dhamma, Because those who are ordinary and don't get it, they're going to leave and there's no problem. The ones who keep coming back are the ones who are capable of understanding the noble teaching, that teaching which is above the others. So, rules and precepts and sila is the ground force for ordinary people, and wisdom, panya, seeing things clearly, seeing dukkha for what it is, that's for the noble mind.
Okay.
But most people are just not going to get it.
You think like there could be a case for you start on the ordinary path and then you like graduate to the noble path, and that's why people do
That's
it?
the only way it can be done.
Mm.
But the way that it's normally done is go start at the ordinary path and never graduate. 99% of the Buddhists never graduate. 100% of the Christians, they never graduate out of the ordinary magical thinking, I need help, I need a Jesus, I need a Savior, into the noble mind of this is my job to track. This is something that needs to be looked at with right, noble viewing. Okay, so so long as the ordinary people keep going to the Wat, loving the ceremonies, the monks don't get a chance to talk to them about noble things. And so it would be better for you to not ask questions until they get to know you better. Keep going back to the Wat. Because in fact, the reality is that what Abhayagari, which by the way means fearless mountain. Actually, the word fearless doesn't work very well. Let us say free from fear, secure mountain.
Mm.
Okay, fearless is actually an ordinary person's translation. But secure, safe mountain. That would be a more noble way of saying it.
That sounds like a place where I want to go, a safe mountain.
All right. So, the monks there were trained under Ajahn Chah and Ajahn Sumedho and other monks who were actually also students of Bhikkhu Buddhadasa. So the likelihood of the senior monks being noble there is quite high. But they still have almost everybody who comes to visit is ordinary people.
Mm.
That's why they give precepts and the triple gem and ceremonies and rituals and whatnot. It's because they're nobles giving ordinary things to ordinary people, because the ordinary people in general are not ready for the noble.
I have like during the time I'm staying there, there's like a good chunk of the day where I can just kind of do whatever. Would you like recommend that I do like longer sits?
I would recommend during the time when there is nothing to do nothing.
Okay.
Stay in seclusion. Don't go find work to do. In fact, stay away from the guy who's got the clipboard out looking for people to do work.
Okay.
Because ordinary people, they want to lend a helping hand. And so they'll put them to work. But if you're there for the real reason for being at the Wat, which is having a chance to practice correctly, and the most correct practice is nothing at all. And so we start with the wholesome. Keep having wholesome thoughts. Everything is fine. Everything is beautiful. No problems, no worries. And eventually there's nothing to it.
Okay.
All right.
Right. That's all I had to ask. Well,
All,
it ended up
okay.
being a lot more questions than I anticipated.
All right. Well, we'll see you later then. Enjoy
Yeah,
your trip.
I will. Thank you. Appreciate
Okay.
everything.
All righty.
Bye.
Bye-bye.